All right, hello everyone. My name's Dr. Cheryl Meyer. I am a psychologist at my day job, but I'm on a hike with my dog. Come on, Leia, come on. And I got this download yesterday. I was meditating and I got this vision of it just from my expertise as well. So it's like we were watching this show called House, my son and I. It's an old show and this guy's a doctor and all of a sudden like something random will be happening and he gets this sudden insight on how to solve the case. It was like that. And it's for avoidance and the anxious people. And sometimes there's just like shifts, and I don't want to sound too out there, but like shifts in levels of consciousness, just meaning like, you know, the same time someone was inventing a car somewhere, there's a hawk up in the sky, a car somewhere, someone else had the same idea, or the same time someone could run a 4-minute mile, someone else on the other side of the world was able to do it before the news got to them, or stuff like that. I don't know if it's exactly that, but, and so sometimes because we're all sharing our information now too on the internet, then people grow in wisdom and this understanding just becomes clear, like the sun shining, right? And so let's just get into this. I want this to be like one stop. Let's learn here how to have compassion for the avoidant person, but also to have complete boundaries as well. Because when we don't have boundaries, we're being the avoidant ourselves. We are blocking intimacy as a more anxious, that we're talking about there's a different attachment styles some people have come up with, you know, like secure attachment, anxious, avoidant. And anyway, we are with the avoidant, someone that was avoidant, there was, some people say there's severe neglect or abuse in their childhood. And so when they reach out for love as a child, that hand got knocked away. All right, so they learn not to do that. It's a biker. So they learned, you better not ask. You better figure out everything yourself. You better not look needy or else we will crush you. All right, so they learned to not do that. And here was the download. I'll just say the download at the beginning, like the insight, the sudden flash of light of insight. I couldn't wait to like be back in my normal professional clothes at my desk and everything. I'm like, I'm on my hiking trail. I haven't even eaten yet this morning. There's the mountains over there. But I just wanted to bring this to us so that we have it. And you can just go back to this and listen to this again. Oh, I just saw it and I'm like, oh no, it better not leave. It's not gonna leave. So when the avoidant has the hand, okay, so what happens is, I was reading this other book and that helped give me this insight. This book called Relaxed by a woman named Megan Fate Marshman, who she's in her 30s and has 2 little kids and her husband died a few years ago, not that long ago. And so she's talking about grief and how every trauma, if you don't work through, I have this great quote that I wrote down. It's in my car, if we get to my car. That the only way to get to the other side of trauma is basically to face your grief. All right. And I just wrote a book called 12 Ways to Heal from Trauma. And so of course my ears are like sensitive to hearing what other people's solutions are for trauma, because those were just 12 insights that came to me in a video. And then I wrote a book after it for us. It took me 2 years, but that's okay. So honor for a second what it is to how to be courageous. You know, the avoidant was courageous as a child. We're just childlike when we reach out and say, please love me. Will you love me? you know, can I have some more, please? Like Oliver Twist. But when that hand is knocked away and discarded and ignored and shamed, then we internalize shame. And now, hold on. Come on, Leia. She wants to sit in the shade. And we might find a place to sit. Oh, there's a lovely bench up here. Maybe we'll go there, because I want to put this all in. Okay, so what happens? This is what happens, though. This is where the avoidant and the anxious person both get stuck. So look, just understand, because I welcome all people of all religions. I have this understanding. I am a Christian, and I have this understanding that Jesus was always teaching about how to be enlightened on this earth, also how to be saved, how to have your soul saved in salvation. And all of it's intermixed in some ways. All of that, you know, as your soul is being saved, you're becoming enlightened, and you're not trying to do this for your ego's sake. But anyway, Jesus gave us these wise words. He says, take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly how to remove the speck out of your brother's eye. Why are you looking so deeply at this big log and you see it in that other person's eye, but you don't see it in yourself? And so it's not like, you know, when you're dealing with a narcissist, this is not to, and I'm not calling all avoidants narcissists or anything. I'm saying, but you don't want, the narcissist wants you to take on all the shame, all the blame yourself, keep being a pleaser, keep letting them use you as narcissistic supply, blah, blah, blah. The avoidant is different than that, but it feels similar to a narcissist. Look, helicopter's gonna come right over us. I still do. I have two boys, so I was always like a boy's mom, like, look, there's a helicopter, there's a train, there's a, you know, because they would be so interested in whatever was, you know, they might be crying about something else. And but anyway, so I don't always distract them. Just we look at like big machines, right? Look at this trail. It's so pretty, and it's been so quiet today. It says no dogs on that one, or else I could go on that one. All right, let me not miss the other trail. I hope I didn't miss it. I didn't. All right. So what happens? Look, when we're already crushed as a child, this is not an excuse to stay in that place, okay? Okay, what I was explaining though is the avoidant, the anxious person is more vocal and is like, wait, why are you slapping my hand away? Why aren't you giving me the love that I'm supposed to have? What's going on? I don't understand this. This is not the way it ought to be. They're more vocal and they speak up, or they try to please, because you get intermittent reinforcement is the strongest thing that happens. So it's like in gambling, if they just every 3 times you won, people wouldn't get addicted to gambling, but it's just this random occurrence and you don't know when you're going to win. So they tested it with rats. When they didn't know when they were going to be fed, they were the most addicted, okay? And so if sometimes when you were a child, when you pleased your parents, they did show up for you, then that reinforced anxious behavior, okay? So don't hate yourself for the way you were programmed. And we don't have to stay in any kind of hatred towards our parents either. So, but the narcissist will want you to just keep feeding them and keep giving them supply and all this stuff. They call it narcissistic supply, and blame you for everything. And you get gaslit and you think it's your fault. And so with the avoidant, when they ghost or they walk away, gosh, if you've ever been ghosted, I was ghosted one time and it just crushed me for years. I had to go to so much therapy. I paid so much money and made so many videos that I haven't been paid yet for, but that's okay. It has made me a better therapist. And I'm not saying it's okay that this person did this, but it helped me understand underlying stuff from my childhood, that person just, you know, they did their own mean, non-courageous thing, but it brought up all of the patterns. What I call, it's like I had drywall over all this wounds and patterns, and drywall in a picture under all this old childhood stuff and patterns that I had been operating in that I didn't know about until this happened. And so I don't recommend that. I kind of say like, Leia, come on. I have the leash pulled, in my pants so I can have my hand free, and so gotta keep my, anyway, come on Leia, you got this. It's not that hot, it's like 10 in the morning or something. All right, she'll be fine. She just rested for a whole hour and I had water. Hi. Okay, so this guy running on this path. Okay, hold on, there's another woman walking and she's on the phone. Okay, 1 second, I'll show you nature. So just reflect on what we've been talking about. Okay, so also just take deep breaths, okay? We are more than this life. That's why I like being in nature. Nature is just so relaxing and calming. And if you are a Christian or if you're not, there's this amazing verse I got to meditate on this morning. Thank God it came into my life. I was doing this other thing and I saw it. It was on the cover of one of my old journals. And I'm like, that's the verse I'm going to meditate on today. And it's John 14:27. It's Jesus' words, all right? And he said, peace I give to you. That's shalom. Shalom means wholeness. Nothing missing, nothing broken. So if you look that way, the ocean's that way. And then he says, my peace I give unto you. And Jesus walked as the God-man. He left heaven, walked as a human here. And so he knows what this peace is. He had to cultivate it within himself and live within it and trust God, that God is bigger than all of this lack of love here and problems and the stuff we face and, the addiction we get into. I'll go back to that for a second, but don't worry, I'll tie it together. He says, peace I give to you, my peace I give unto you. Therefore, do not let your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. Don't let it be tossed about and pulled out of calmness, out of this equanimity, out of this peace of mind, out of this inner quietude that you can have that is not fake. If both our parents were super amazing, if both our mom and dad were, and somehow we learned that they were super reliable and present and taught us our real worth, in the Bible it says Ephesians 2:10 says you are God's masterpiece. You're his poema, and God is beyond he and she. Anyway, if we internalized that and knew that, then I did my dissertation on this. Wouldn't we think that God is this good, capable, absolute infinite beingness, right? And we wouldn't worry about anything really, because just like a little child doesn't worry, when every time she jumps, her father catches her, she's just not worried about life, or he's not, right? And so, of course, that we didn't have that teaches us how to be stronger and you can't see my muscles in that. Oh, there you can. I'm like, we needed the sun to shine on that. So all adversity makes us stronger. That's in James chapter 1 if you want to read it in the Bible. But anyway, I'm not here to preach. I'm here, but you've got to understand that God does not leave us empty-handed. He speaks about all of these patterns in the Bible, right? Come on, Leia. Come on. That's so funny. Okay, so back to the deep insight was that the avoidant learned that to reach out was not safe. Now, they're first attracted to an anxious person or a secure person. Let's just not label it. Because the secure person speaks up for what he or she wants and is like, hey, you're not showing up in this relationship. There's not reciprocity. I'm not interested in, pursuing this relationship more because I care about my life and I don't want to. Now she's running after lizards. I don't want to be in a life where someone doesn't want to be invested in growing in intimacy. You don't have to love like lay it on thick at the beginning, all that stuff. I don't say the word in case they flag videos for stuff. But anyway, you know what it is that love's saying. Anyway, so if you don't want that, then bye, but the anxious person will try to please, and then the avoidant person might stay at the beginning and think, this is awesome. This person speaks up for what they want and is courageous in all these ways that I learned to just shut down and go in like a turtle from the abuse and neglect. Now, here's where the insight is and the problem happens for all of us, okay? Is that, hold on, I have to look for bikes here. We'll get to the bench and then I'll sit down and talk. All right, enjoy the calm whenever there's a moment. Learn how to be in joy, in peace, in this shalom, in this wholeness. Nothing missing, nothing broken. We came from God, and so we have access to that wholeness. Now, I have this understanding that Jesus gives us his righteousness. So God is just. So we have access to that wholeness because Jesus reconciles us to a perfect God. But just be where you are and let's talk about healing. Jesus said, I came to heal the brokenhearted, right? And he does it through us, and he does it through giving us wisdom and knowledge to share to other people. So let's, whether you call it Jesus or not, let's get some of that. All right, here. You sit in the shade, Leah. I'll sit here on the bench. Okay, look at this awesome view. Okay, so, when the avoidant learns to just shut down because their parents say by their actions, not by their words, they could say, oh, we love you, but you're annoying us, or we don't have time for you, or look how busy we are, we're doing 3 jobs to be able to take care of you, and whatever excuse they have. This is what happens if we're not, either of us, okay, as the avoidant or as a secure person, or maybe a secure person has done this, or as the anxious person, if we're not willing to have the courage to face the grief, which is painful, like all of us, our survival mechanisms teach us to avoid pain, to look for comfort, to do whatever we can to get out of a painful situation. Now, this is why the avoidant person, when things happen in childhood, if they learn to go, let's say now parents can give their kids like an iPad or something, if they just learn to go to a video game, they get a dopamine high, and or they run to that themselves, so they find some other way. This is why oftentimes there's all kinds of addictions, internet addictions, gambling addictions, any kind of self-soothing addiction, alcohol, whatever it is. The avoidance will go to that. Now, the anxious people, we're often addicted to the avoidant person, and that's not healthy either. All right, because that's us saying to the avoidant, we're saying, I was missing this in childhood, and you remind me of that familiar feeling. And so you need to fix yourself, and you need to, if you would just get insight, then I wouldn't have all this pain. If you would get insight, no, if you get insight, if you get it, then you're not running after an unavailable person. When you get it, you're not going to be doing that. But to face the grief of, wow, my parents weren't available to me in the ways that I really needed and wanted them to be as a child. It might take 2 days of crying. It might take a week of crying. It might take 2 hours. But it's like we're running after one toxic relationship after another, or just staying single for forever or whatever. Because we keep thinking that the healing comes from out there when they get it. No, you can get it, that you're worth more. And one way I say that you can get that I've experienced myself personally, is having a real, genuine, intimate relationship with God. And that takes time to cultivate, and that I meditate and sit with God take a scripture and I just sit and ask God about it, or just sit and let it sink in. Oh wait, Jesus wanted to give each of us his peace. Why did he want to give us his peace? Oh, because we know we're in this fallen world that's backwards and that doesn't know how to love in all these ways. And he wanted to give us something so that we're equipped to make it through the valleys of the shadow of death. You know, that's Psalm 23. And so, and have something higher than what this world has been offering. Now, I'm not talking about just go into this spiritual state where I'm so spiritual and so I don't need anybody. That's a temptation as well. Oh, hold on. Pause. Okay, my workout needed to be paused because I was sitting down. So, but the insight was that if the avoidant, okay, when an avoidant, dismissive avoidant, or whatever avoidant, when they don't feel courageous enough already, they've been broken down, and I'm not excusing them. When they don't feel like anyone's there to help them regulate their emotions and go through a really hard, like if you're facing a mountain, like we were climbing up the mountain, right? If you have someone with you, it makes it easier. It just does. You know, you have this conversation and you're both like, we can do this together. And, you know, both of you, one of you might be carrying food and the other water. And it just, there's a verse that says that in Ecclesiastes where two can keep each other warm or something like that. And a cord of 3 strands is not easily broken. And some people call that like you and your kingdom spouse and Christ. And it's all pretty. Hold on. A water fell out. And so when the avoidant doesn't know that they are worth facing their grief, look, if their parents faced their grief, then their parents wouldn't have neglected them. They would have seen how important intimacy is and how possible real love and intimacy is. Their parents modeled, avoid going to the deeper place of facing your grief. You have to face grief to get through trauma, to get to the other side. She was talking about the study of all these people, and it didn't matter how big the trauma was, what kind of trauma it was, whatever kind of abuse it was. The people that walked through the grief, that faced it, were more joyful afterwards. They're more, and I might be mixing up 2 of her studies that she was talking about, but definitely she was saying they're more joyful after the traumatic event than other people who didn't even experience traumas actually. And so it can make you stronger. But what I was going to say, and this is the insight, is that the avoidant, because their parents modeled to them, no, we can't go through the grief. Just keep taking quick fixes and take shortcuts, and we're going to take a shortcut by neglecting you because it's too hard for us to find a way to do otherwise. Then, okay, what any of us do as the anxious person or even a secure-ish person can do this, or an avoidant person, is as long as you are excusing the other person for doing what they did to you, then you excuse yourself from doing the same thing. So we ask, how could that avoidant person be so callous and not care to just walk away from this real relationship that seemed like was happening, this real friendship? How can they just ghost? How can they just drop it and go on to another person, another shallow person, or another, just dive into another pool? C.S. Lewis talks about how they love the sensation of diving in, but that when it comes to swimming, it's like, you know, unless you're committed to real love, you won't stay to swim because that looks like work to you. You're addicted to that feeling of diving into the new pool. That's one way to say it in a simile, hyperbole. I don't remember. But, and so this is what happens is if they were willing to face grief, if they were willing to face the real grief it would take to just be sad that their parents weren't there for them, be sad that they got the message that they have to regulate everything themselves. They have to pretend like they don't need anything. They have to continue to sabotage relationships because they think it's vulnerable to think that you need another person in your life. They continue to call other people needy who are just actually showing up ready for a real relationship. It's because they're still justifying their parents' actions. Even if they didn't like them and they said that that was bad, that they were neglected or whatever, if we say in ourselves, oh, they couldn't help it, then we internalize, I must deserve people that couldn't help it, and I can't help it. Therefore, I'm stuck in my life, and I stay in that same familiar pattern and addiction. And I only give myself shortcuts, and I don't give myself real love, and I don't give myself real intimacy. And the same thing, the same message is with the anxious person is, I have to jump higher and prove my worth more and be gaslit more and try to keep letting them get away with whatever. Let them have 2 girlfriends on the side, or boyfriends if it's a girl, you know what I mean, if you're a guy. And it's like, let them have that. That doesn't matter. That's okay. I can have this. You know, people will say, the open relationship is cool. I'm like, no, that isn't that. I mean, I'm not going to tell other people how they are to live. But for me, that's a cop-out. That's saying I don't deserve to have a real relationship with someone who really learns how to be close and intimate and committed and work on things and do the inner work and stop running to excuses and stop accepting the pain and suffering from childhood as if that's the only truth there is. No, there's a higher truth. And we're called to go to this high that's higher than high, right? Higher than the highs that you kept running to. And so I understand there are teachers on YouTube and stuff that study this, that talk about how the avoidant person is addicted to dopamine highs and they don't know how to accept the oxytocin that happens in real bonding and real relationships. But that just broke down in childhood. I really think that, I know that in my own relationship with God, I have experienced oxytocin. I haven't measured it, but it's like, you can begin. Wow, I'm hearing the verse that says, God lifts up the humble and brings down the haughty, the prideful. Pride comes before a fall. We are proud when we keep saying, I want to do it my own way, and I have to be this tough person and have this exterior. My parents taught me that me asking for love was stupid because they didn't give it, so they neglected it. So I shut it down, and I learned I have to do everything on my own. Well, then you're cutting out God. And C.S. Lewis says it's like an insane a person at an asylum if they just draw a picture of the sun and they block it out. And if I'm acting like now there's no sun. Nope, the sun is still there. Thank God, right? And so the sun is still there. Real love is here, and we're meant to have it. And so the anxious person, instead of walking through the grief, and I was crying a lot yesterday, right? Instead of walking through the grief of my parents dropped the ball, right? God never intended for them to drop the ball, and they did. And I don't have to spend the rest of my life trying to please other people, talk them into seeing that I am this diamond that God created, that I'm worth loving, blah, 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 blah. It's true, but I don't have to spend my life convincing them. That's a position from childhood that we get stuck in when we're still trying to justify our parents in a way. We're still trying to say, oh, they couldn't help it. Well, if they couldn't help it, then you're not going to change, because then you're going to use that same thing you internalized, and I can't help it. No, they could help it. And with God's help, they could have done the inner work and shown up for you and taught you that you were worth intimacy. But they didn't do that. But you're worth that. And you're worth more than chasing after an avoidant person. That's an addiction. That's a shortcut. That's trying to heal your own childhood through changing another person. That's control and manipulation. And some people say that in the Bible, and I want to research this more, but it says control and manipulation is a form of witchcraft, all right? Everyone has free will. And their estimation, someone else that chose to ghost you, that was a cowardice way to act. For you to keep chasing after them, that's cowardice, because you're worth just knowing your real worth. And for these avoidant people to keep acting like, oh, I'm never needy. And they're so needy. They're so needing to keep presenting to the world this outer exterior like they don't need anything. They're super needy, but they're not realizing it. And super invested in propping up this false exterior because they were hurt in childhood when they did ask. You know, they did when they did ask. But when now a lot of mindfulness people or whatever, I understand this one mindfulness teacher that I really like. I like him a lot. And I've gone to a lot of his classes and been live with him and stuff like that and taken online classes. He will say, he says, oh, well, they acted on the level of consciousness that they were at the time. And so he calls that forgiveness. But I'm like, no, you are justifying this person. Yes, they were acting on the level of consciousness that they were at, but we're all called to a higher standard. So let me give you a really quick example because I want to wrap this up. When we're on the freeway, all right, here in America, you're responsible to know what the speed limit is. If the cop pulls you over and he or she says, hey, how fast were you going? And those are tricks too. You don't have to answer those. But anyway, that's a separate thing. But how fast were you going? Do you know the speed limit? No, I don't know it. Well, you're responsible to know it. And so it doesn't matter why you didn't know it, that you have a license in this state to drive on their streets. You're meant to know what the speed limit is. All right. And you're meant to drive within it according to their rules. All right. Now, I won't go into all of that, like, because I could talk about independence and like all this stuff. Anyway, but nevertheless, let's just use that example for itself. And so this is where the mindfulness sort of stuff drops the ball and people get stuck, because it's important to connect with this present moment. It's important to watch your breath and take a deep breath and practice like what Brother Lawrence talks about. He talks about practicing the presence of God. He talks about that in a Christian way. That's amazing. And so a lot of those people are teaching this stuff, but you're always going to be missing if you think, oh, I forgave them, when you didn't forgive them. You just excused them, and then you internalize their excuse that I must not have been worth them being held to a higher standard. Well, we serve a God that does have a higher standard, and this is why Jesus never dropped the ball, and this is why Jesus had to die on the cross. And I'm not trying to convert you by telling you this. You can be converted. Like, I wish this love for everybody, but someone had to say, no, it's not right to drop the ball. We're meant to be completely loving at all times. And Christ was that here on earth. He was always loving, all the way even to his death. And because he didn't sin, death could not keep him down. He took the curse of death upon himself, because we're not meant to have death, and reversed it to give us life. And he says, I came to give you life. All right. Now, one way to give us life is this psychological life, because he says, when you practice this truth and you know it, then the truth will set you free. You will know the truth experientially. You have to practice what I'm saying in your life, and then you'll know it, and it will set you free. So, are you understanding? Write in the comments if you're understanding, if you're not understanding, and maybe other people's comments will help draw this out more. Is you understand? If I say, oh, I forgive you, but I have all this bitterness in my heart, I really haven't forgiven you. If I say, oh, well, she didn't mean to talk bad about me, then I just excused that person. I did not forgive them. Forgiveness is this huge thing, but it's not complicated. It's just say, if I give all of this bad that this person did to me, this person that ghosted me, that treated me like crap, when I deserve to be treated with communication and love and kindness, if I give all of that and just bring it up to God and say, God, I don't know completely how to forgive this person, but I'm willing to help me forgive that person. Help me give you the whole debt. Forgive us our debts that we owe to God because of the ways we drop the ball for other people. I have 2 kids. I understand. Forgive us all our debts as we forgive those who are indebted to us, who trespass against us, who walked on our hearts. That does not mean excuse. That means, God, I give you all this mess. I know that you are a just God and you will hold them accountable, and you always meant for me to be loved, and you want me to have love and know love and not be stuck trying to please and trying to prove my worth to the whole rest of the world, or to myself, or to some religious leader, or to, people that I imagine are on the internet by looking a certain way or being a certain way or getting more likes or whatever it is. When we're trying to prove our worth And you also didn't mean for me to try to go self-regulate all of this myself, and I don't need anybody, and I never have to connect with anybody because they always hurt me and they don't know how to love. All right, both of those are lies that we internalize when we didn't face the grief. Just face the grief. Just ask God to help you face the grief. So I forgive means I let go of holding on to this bitterness. I let go of acting this way. I let go of trying to prove my worth. Show me my worth. Give me your righteousness, God. Fill me with your Holy Spirit. Teach me your way. Give me wisdom and insight and discernment. Help me release this person. Help me trust that you will help him or her do the inner work so that they can know love, independent of me. Whether anyone ever comes back to us or not. It's like you wish them love. All right, you wish them. And so what that's going to take is facing whatever grief. And that means facing more shame. And none of us want to face more shame. We already internalize a lot of our parents' shame, because if you're a child and your parents like, I don't want to know you, get out of my face, by their actions, you internalize that something must be broken with you, something must be wrong. But that's a lie. It's just they didn't know how to love. And they need to go to God and learn how to love on a higher level. And God's like, receive this love directly from me, and I will teach you how to receive it from other people and how to be that way toward yourself. But as long as we're excusing their actions and calling it forgiveness, or trying to fix it ourselves by going out and trying to prove our worth to another person that's like a parent substitute, or another institution at work, or buying all these cars, or trying to, get all these fancy clothes and feel like I'm important now or whatever, we're still trying to get that love in a fake way when you can have a real way. You can have a real love. All right, I said it. So the main thing is walking through the grief to get to the other side of the trauma, so that it becomes now a joy in your life. Not that you ever wanted that to happen or wish it upon anyone else, but that you are stronger from it, And she was talking about, Megan Fate Martian was talking in her book Relaxed, because someone had asked, what's one word that describes how Jesus was? And she's like, relaxed. And that's John 14:27, because he walks in peace, in this real peace. I mean, he is a strong person. He said no to people, and he called them out and stuff like that. And he was compassionate. Never, it says, there's a verse that says, a bruised reed I will not break. That means like, if one of these little, see how some of these are bent? It's like if this thing right here, I'll show you. This is like a bruised reed. Like this is bent over. He won't break it more. If you come to him sincerely as you are, he'll welcome you, accept you. It says a snuffed out candle he will not snuff out. It's like so there's just a little bit of light left in you, right? God will brighten that up. All right, someone's coming on their bike. All right, I wish you so much love. Let me know. Hi. We'll just, whatever. Like if you didn't get it, then just watch it again first, all right? And understand that it takes courage to face the grief and let go of the shame. Like we don't have to go to addictions. Shame fuels addictions. When we're holding on to the shame and we think we have to go prove ourselves, or we have to just keep acting tough, like we don't need anything, then we stay in the shame. We still have this underlying belief, I must be broken, otherwise my parents would have shown up. But they taught me not to reach out. And it looks like the anxious person at first looks really strong, because they're going, no, I want love and I fight for love and blah, blah, blah. But, to keep pleasing a person, that's not a relationship. That's avoiding real intimacy too. That's trying to manipulate it. And instead of just go through the grief of like, okay, I didn't have that. That was really, really painful as a child. It does not mean I'm worthless, but I felt like that. And just sit through the grief of letting go, of going, wow, my parents, they did drop the ball, and I'm sad about that. And just take it to God and ask God to help you forgive them, so that you don't have to run around trying to prove your worth to anyone else or anything else, or to yourself by trying to be a perfectionist to yourself, and jumping through one hoop after another and checking a bunch of boxes. This can heal all of that. All right, just walk through the grief. And I forgot what I was going to say about Megan when she was talking about, oh yeah, I was getting a song. I always get a song. The Holy Spirit gives me a song. There's Todd Rundgren, is that his name? But he sings, light of the world, shine on me, love is the answer, shine on us soul, set us free, love is the answer. And he's like, but this is what I was thinking, if there's a shortcut, I'd have found it, but there's no easy way around it. And then he goes back to light of the world, shine on me. Real love is the answer. So this really is, love is all you need, is real love, not this excusing, not this just trying to be calm and mindful and saying, oh, I'm better. So they were just at the level of consciousness. That's part of the truth, but they're meant to know the speed limit. They're held accountable for the speed limit. All right. I hope you understand that analogy is like, yes, that's the level of consciousness with which they were operating when they pushed us away. But they're held accountable to know more, and you're worth more. You're always worth more. All right, much love.